The media says Trump's tariff math was fake. Okay, let's walk through this. The White House told everyone exactly how the numbers were calculated. They didn't hide it, they didn't lie about it. They used the most direct method possible. Trade deficit divided by imports. If that's what you're mad about, then admit it. What you really hate is that it worked. This wasn't a secret. This wasn't backroom guesswork. The Trump team explained the formula in plain English. If we import $400 billion from a country and export $100 billion to them, that's a $300 billion deficit. Divide that by total imports and you get 75%. Then cut that number in half as a starting point for reciprocity. That's how you get 37%. And that's how they calculated the tariffs. They weren't pretending it was a custom schedule. They were building leverage. And the math, it was simple on purpose. The CBC spent 7 straight minutes pretending they just uncovered some deep scandal because the numbers weren't from a World Bank spreadsheet. Here's what they said. The way they calculated this just simply doesn't make any sense. What they appear to have done was take the U.S. trade deficit with each country, divide it by total U.S. imports from that country, turn that into a percentage, and that's it. Yes, that's it. That's the point. The media is not angry that the math was secret. They're angry that the math didn't come from them. Let's be clear. The White House didn't lie about this. They published the formula. They showed the charts in the Rose Garden. They said out loud how it worked. It was trade deficit divided by imports, then divided by 2. That's not deception. That's transparency. If you're calling it fake, you're either lazy, dishonest, or both. And of course, CBC's upset. The CBC is literally funded by the Canadian government. It's a state broadcaster. And the Canadian Prime Minister just said, the old trade relationship with the U.S. is over. Why? Because for the first time, Canada doesn't get to bash American populists on TV all day and still enjoy cheap, one-way access to the U.S. consumer base. Now they actually have to play fair. They're mad because Trump treated them like any other country. These aren't journalists uncovering fraud. These are globalist courtiers shocked that someone finally picked up a calculator and used it against them. And let's be honest, this isn't about economic accuracy. This is about narrative control. They're angry that the formula didn't require a PhD. They're angry it worked on a dry erase board instead of behind a paywall. The simplicity is what made it effective, and they hate that it bypassed them. Let's talk about what that formula really measured. It didn't try to list every tariff and technicality. It measured how badly other countries were beating us in trade and then said, we're done. If China runs a $300 billion surplus with us, it doesn't matter how many customs exemptions or tax rebates they give us on paper. We're getting fleeced. And Trump finally said it out loud. The CBC calls that wrong. We call it finally being honest. And the results speak for themselves. Cambodia complained. Bangladesh offered tariff reductions. India opened talks. Israel panicked. China retaliated. If the numbers were so fake, why is half the world scrambling to respond? Because they weren't fake. They were functional. The math makes perfect sense. They triggered fear. They triggered leverage. They triggered movement. That's what trade policy is supposed to do. It's not an academic exercise. It's economic warfare. And for once, someone showed up to fight it. It was brilliant in its simplicity. The CBC asks, what if Vietnam doesn't really have a 90% tariff? You know what? Who cares? They run a 90% imbalance. They sell us $100 billion worth of goods and buy $10 billion in return. Whether that's because of tariffs, quotas, VAT, or simply closed off access, it's still lopsided. And that's the point. Trump didn't need a panel of economists. He needed a chart that said, this is what we're dealing with. And now we're done pretending it's normal. The final proof that the numbers worked, they sparked exactly what they were supposed to. Negotiations, panic, retreat, realignment. So no, the tariff charge to the USA column wasn't pulled from WTO filings. And guess what? The World Trade Organization doesn't control how the United States calculates what we charge for tariffs. We don't need permission from global bureaucrats to protect our own economy. The idea that these numbers were wrong because they weren't sourced from Geneva is pure manipulation. Media spin aimed at people who never bother to check what actually matters. This was never about math errors. This was about challenging a system designed to keep America weak and voiceless. And now, for the first time in decades, we're fighting back with the one thing the global elite can't stand: a simple number and a little bit of nerve.